Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are. I'm Howard Young, and Christy's off this week, so we have a special guest here. We have Doug Jury with us today, and Doug's my boss, and he's the VP of Solution Sales.
Hey everybody, this is Doug, and thanks for joining this afternoon and the morning, and I know you're all over the world, so thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, so today we're going to look at the pricing guide and some of the best practices that we subscribe to, and give you an idea of how to configure your storage.
All right, so unlike traditional RAID arrays, if you will, that they charge for kind of what lands, on your deck or what you take in the cloud, what we do is we break down our components, our software-defined storage, into different components: cores, storage nodes, and drives. Now here's an example of a 5 storage node setup. This could be smaller, it could be much larger. In our public clouds, of course, we have hundreds of these storage nodes. But what we're going to do is we're going to pay attention today on cores and drives, basically getting through the pricing exercise for you folks today, and also some best practices. If you remember this slide maybe from previous presentations, our software-defined storage stack is made up of x86 servers off the shelf, and then industry standard SSD, SAS, and SATA drives, as well as good quality networking, which binds it all together, and then OpenStack, Ubuntu, and KVM. And that's really where our secret sauce is in that layer there.
Yeah, one nice thing, we just offered Fiber Channel to our cloud, so that's available for on-premise. It won't be available in Amazon unless they ever have a Fiber Channel offering, but it is available.
Great point. Great point.
So what Doug mentioned was that we are software-defined storage, and you can create your VPSA basically by going to the Manage Zadara Storage, and you'll get a prompt here. So, for example, if I want to create a VPSA, I just get the VPSA identifier, and I can select any of my public clouds that are available. We run in Amazon, Azure. We can go directly to Equinix, and we have a couple of partner sites like Omegabyte and Dimension Data, for example. And then you would select your region. So each region, for example, AWS has we have 8 different regions right now, and we're always expanding. So look forward to new regions if you need to go into different areas. And then what we do is we just want to select the number of CPUs or cores, and basically you want to select that based on the number of drives. So for example, if I need 10 drives, I would go ahead and select the basic model, or 400, and then if I want 60 terabytes of raw data, I would do 10 by 6 terabyte drives, and that would give me a cost of $2.99 an hour. There's other things you can do. You can add your controller or Zadara Container Services. The first one is free, but if you need to expand with more memory and more CPUs, this runs 15 cents an hour, so you could do something like that. But definitely select that one with the free one, because it doesn't cost you anything at that point. So once you, I won't create it, of course, but once you do, you spin up a new VPSA, and you get something that looks like this. And Doug, why don't you go ahead and explain what VPSA 2 does?
Sure. So once Howard hits the submit button, OpenStack, our software, goes to work. And basically what it says is, okay, I have a resource table. I've got a bunch of stuff out there, and I want to basically create this blue icon in the lower left. We call this kind of the birth of the icon. It's the first time that we actually have a usable VPSA. Besides that, before that, everything is just kind of resources for you folks. So here we have VPSA 2. We've selected a 400 series engine and 10 drives. The interesting thing here is right on top there's a VPSA number 1. And VPSA number 1 is for yet another customer, or maybe even another department within your infrastructure or in your company. But you can see that they're completely isolated. VPSA 1 has selected a 200 engine, so they have 2 cores. And VPSA 2 has selected a 400 engine, so they have 4 cores, 2 for active and 2 for standby. Then they also have selected 10 drives like Howard showed you, and those are basically the drives that we're going to talk about in a couple of other slides as well. But these are completely isolated. These VPSAs, never the two shall meet. They're completely isolated at a networking layer, at a cache layer, at a core layer, and a disk layer. This all but completely removes the noisy neighbor syndrome that is always very troublesome when you get into the cloud.
Yeah, like Doug mentioned, we do have a software network here. It's software defined, and you get your private network. If you had another account, it would be completely different from the other VPSA, and so you can, you have complete isolation on network too, as we mentioned.
Right, and let's say VPSA 1 wants to go. Let's go back one really quick. Let's say that you grow. I mean, we hope that everybody's growing and enjoying the technology, and VPSA 1 needs to grow to a 400 engine. There's an online tool that says, okay, I want to add another core to the green. I want to add more drives, and this is all without downtime or any type of outage or anything like that. It's all 24/7.
Right. So the when I provision my VPSA with 10 drives, there's a lot of ways I can create my protection levels. So I have 10 drives to play with. We support RAID 1, and if you mirror it or if you stripe it, you get a RAID 10. But we also support RAID 5 and RAID 6, and that gives you different levels of protection. So with RAID 5, you get an extra parity drive. With RAID 6, you get 2 parity drives. And so that gives you a higher resiliency, for any type of fault tolerance goes. But when you build out your VPSA, what you want to do is build it for your application. So you want to get the best value for your application and your performance. And so what we found is that if you have large files and videos, RAID 6 really works very good for that type of use case. But if you have a lot of small files, millions of directories, you probably want to go to a faster configuration with a RAID 10 SATA and add cache. So, the cache is, it's fully, defined on the fly. You can add more and more cache to improve your performance. So, with our flexibility here, you want to test as much as possible to get the best performance for your application. As in all SANs, you probably are going to want to use block, and then RAID 5 or RAID 1 are completely, satisfactory for that type of application. Any type of NFS for the database, for example, if you can run MySQL, RAID 5 works really good for SAS and SSD. Also, even with MySQL cluster, you want to run it with block. And then there's other type of applications that we found that run really well with block. RAID 1, RAID 10 for NTFS if you're going to run an Microsoft server. If you have run an NFS server, you can do ZFS, for example. But with ZFS, there's also a meta drive. You probably want to move that into a SSD and keep the data itself on the spindles. That way you'll get better performance for ZFS. And if you ever want to run Hadoop and do some any type of analytics, just go with a RAID or RAID +1, and that gives you the same level of protection, but at a NAS level. And of course, the best case, if you're new to our Zios product, the best value is going to be the two-way SATA right now. So with the durability cost, there's depending on the type of protection levels you have. If you use like a RAID 1+1, you have an overhead of 2 drives or 200%, and with RAID 1 you have a 100% overhead. And then as you go into the higher protection levels with RAID 5 all the way down to RAID 6, you can get down to just a 25% overhead with a RAID 6 with 10 drives. So this will give you, this is what our requirement is on the number of storage nodes. Most of our public clouds in the US will support the RAID 6 up to 10. But some of the overseas clouds, for example, in Singapore and Korea, they're smaller nodes, so you can only get the RAID 5. And we do not support the SATA in the RAID 5. We only support it in SAS and SSD. But if you want to run RAID 6 in SATA, that's perfectly fine. Also with the SSDs and SAS.
And with this slide, as well as the previous slide, you can't get it wrong. I mean, that's always our tagline, because if you choose SAS and you want to go to SATA, we do a migration on the fly. If you choose RAID 1 and you want to go to RAID 6, we can do a migration on the fly. So it really is all these facts and all these hypotheses are bared out during a trial or during some of your setup work. So just don't be afraid. You can't get it wrong. You can always migrate your data over to something that might be a little bit more acceptable for your use case.
Yeah, the migration is completely transparent. You don't have to do anything on your servers. Basically, you set up the migration job and the blocks are copied, and then once it's done, it just does a quick pointer switch and you're ready to go. So there's no downtime on that. So when you select the engine, you want to choose the best one that's for your application. But usually it's going to be dependent on the number of drives. So for example, if you need 58 or 48 terabytes of usable space, you're going to need roughly, in RAID 6, you can use a smaller engine, for example, with 8+2, and that would give you 10 drives. So with a smaller engine and with 10 drives, you have 0.45 cents a gigabyte per month. But if you go with a RAID 10 or RAID 60, sorry, it'll give you a larger price. And then with RAID 10, it goes a little bit higher. Now that's just the overhead of the RAID protection level. And so you can see the difference. For the same amount of storage, you can get different prices. Of course, if you want one of the main or nice features is that you can also hibernate your VPSA. So you're only charged for the storage or the drives instead of the engine. Another thing that you probably should do is always go with the Docker engine. The first CPU is free, and you might as well just have it there for any type of use that you want to go into in the future. And if you're using the VPSA purely for block, use the smallest engine possible. There's not a lot of overhead for any type of iSCSI or block access.
Now, all that data in that table there was very important, but I'm a visual person, so I wanted to break that down into the various pieces. We said that we were going to remember cores, storage nodes, and disks. So in this particular case, as Howard said, we selected a 400 engine. We saw that not only in the slide wheel, but you also saw that in the demo. We have 2 active cores, and we have 2 standby cores, and you can see them right there in the blue. That gives us a price of 99 cents per hour. We're going to add to that 10 drives, which is going to give in RAID 6, going to give us a net of 48 terabytes after we throw away the 2 drives. So that's going to be a cost of 10 times 20 cents, or $2. Over to the right, we have the $2.99 that Howard talked about, and that basically gives us down to the 4.5 cents per gig per month. But the magic behind this is a little bit of the math, so let's go to the bottom. 2.99 cents we talked about, times an average month has approximately 730 hours in a month, so that gives us a bill of that 48 terabytes of around $21.82 per month. If we take that and simply divide it by the amount of terabytes or gigabytes that we're using, that renders us down to the 4.5 cents per gigabyte per month. So all the magic has been removed here. We know exactly what each piece is, and this is really the essence of what we wanted to explain today. The next slide is, let's say that we do want to hibernate, like Howard had talked about. Let's remove the cost of the engine completely. It doesn't mean you can use your VPSA, but you can keep your data out there. It's sort of like a storage cube where you have your sofa there, but you don't have access to it. They basically took the lock off and they put theirs on. In order to get the lock back on, you've got to pay a little bit. So in this case, the engines are gone, but the data is still there being taken care of, and everything's fine. So now we're getting to a cost of $2 per hour, or 3 cents per gigabyte per month. Simply the same math works here very, very easily. And then the last slide in this grouping is what if we did want to do the Docker container or the container services. For a 2 CPU Docker container, we're going to add those 2 cores like you see there, and we're going to add that at 15 cents per hour, so that ends up getting us a homogenized number of 4.8 cents per gigabyte per month. All these moving parts, you have complete dials to add more drives, add a bigger engine, add more Docker containers, all these various pieces.
Yeah, so I didn't see any questions on this. This is really exciting. I really love the idea of software-defined storage and how you can configure it and make things faster or slower depending on your requirement. And it's just a really fantastic product. It's one of the nice things that I get to do every day is just play with the product and just figure out what's the best for you guys. So with that, you can contact me at Howard at Zadara Storage, or you can follow me at Howard Y. And if you want to go ahead and ask me anything, that's the link you would go ahead and type in into the dialog box there. And then if we choose your question, there's a Starbucks gift card that we send out to you. And we'll let you know, if you won, or we select that type of topic. And the dialog box that we use, or to provision your storage, you go to manage.zadarastorage.com, and then if you don't have an account, create one, or just log into it, and you can play around with creating a VPSA or just seeing what you can do for the pricing. So Doug, I appreciate you coming on Tech Tip Tuesday for this week, and that was really fantastic with the insight you have on the storage itself.
Perfect. Well, thank you everybody. Thanks for inviting me. You'll probably hear me on some upcoming Tech Tip Tuesdays, and I love the format. So thank you for supporting Howard through the last 16 sessions, and look forward to another 16 with you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and next week we have a guest to host, and that's Gabe. Gabe was on a few weeks back. He's going to talk about the cube, and I may be listening from Hawaii, so if I'm not too sunburnt, but we'll see. I may dial in just to see how everything goes. But it should be really exciting with Gabe next week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.